the first sort of area we're going to, I think this dovetails pretty nicely, actually, is a topic that when we started putting this together, it was almost like immediately the first thing that came to people's minds. And a little bit from that question that you just had there, the idea of the whole ad sales process, right, is in many respects in need of a rethink, perhaps is evolving, but as said earlier, right, agencies can be problematic, especially the way they're set up. What are sellers, what are media owners, what are companies that are in the client solution business, what are they doing? What can they do? How can they evolve and change and become more, we use the term for this panel, modern, but it's also more realistic, right? Given that so many challenges are buffeting the industry and stuff. So Melanie has been gracious to, by the way, let's all wish Melanie a happy birthday. It was her birthday yesterday. All right, wheel in the cake. No, there's no cake, I'm sorry. Please feel free to take over and introduce, and I hope a few nuggets of wisdom here in this conversation, because these are people who live the real world of what's going on right now, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you, Melanie.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Good morning, everybody. I'm Melanie Webb. I'm the Vice President of Sales Operations for Tegna. And we are here today to talk about modernizing the media ad sales force. And I will let the panel introduce themselves. I'll start here to my left with Dawn.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. Hi, my name's Dawn Williamson. I head up sales development for Effective, a Comcast company. We are the audience delivery company across multi-screens for video.
Awesome. Jen.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Shalabro. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales Enablement with Nexstar Media Group. My role is to really work with all of our sales teams in empowering them to be successful from systems adoption through training and enablement on products and that sort of thing.
Awesome. And Al?
Good morning. I'm Al Lustgarten. I'm a Senior Vice President at Hearst, and I oversee technology and information services. And my role is to oversee ad tech and ad operations, and a few of my peers are here. We're hybrid people. I also oversee our technology infrastructure, cloud computing, security, compute, employee productivity. So, and full disclosure, I'll be retiring at the end of the year, so I'm kind of on my retirement tour, but I've had a 42-year career, and I'll be moving on to consulting and advisory work.
Congratulations to you. That's
Thank you.
Awesome, amazing. Well, great. Well, we're excited to be here this morning, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about how the demands on our sellers have changed and how it has morphed over time. And obviously, as Rashad just mentioned, clients and buyers, they're looking for more than just linear TV. They want to have a marketing conversation. They want to have a business conversation. And so we're going to talk about how our leaders here at these companies are handling those challenges and how they're addressing that. So let's just start with, how are you thinking about modernizing? Everyone has probably a different definition of that in each individual company. So let's start with that. What does modernizing the media ad sales force mean to you? So I'll start with you, Jen.
So for us at Nexstar, I think it starts with investment, right? It's the understanding that we've got to move beyond kind of where we are today and be more client-focused, and that includes everything from taking a look at our internal systems, how do we support our sales teams end-to-end, and providing opportunity for them to be with clients more, to understand our product portfolio and to fully address selling that product portfolio across all of our individual business units and divisions. The investment is, Brett here on our team is helping support all of that with all the back-end systems to reduce the swivels between the chairs for the sellers. And ultimately, that provides a better experience for our clients. So that is probably key for us. In addition, I think we've stood up a couple of new divisions inside of Nexstar. One being leading efforts with Hannah here, who we'll hear from today, on measurement and looking at new currencies so that we can truly value our audiences for every impression that we sell, which is more critically important now than ever. And then honestly for sales enablement. So my division is a new team. Before this, I was the Senior Vice President of Digital Sales at Nexstar, and inside, as many of you know, the education that is required to take a very linear-based organization and pull sellers into a new way of selling takes a lot of effort, communication, education. So building that ecosystem and the support of the company to actually, put a team in place to provide that value and help our sellers, empower them for the future selling has been really our focus.
Great. And what about you, Dawn? How are you all looking at modernizing?
Yeah, it's an ongoing journey, right? If you look at consumer behavior by itself, you'll see that folks are consuming content across linear, streaming, mobile devices. So it's imperative for the sales team to be able to speak about how we consume media across all those devices. So they have to be well-versed in terms of understanding how we're delivering advertising experiences, leveraging data. First-party data is a huge unlock for us with Comcast. Historically, we're linear spot, and that's why it was important that we thought about, okay, where are consumers consuming content? They are across multiple platforms. How do we get there? How do we make it easy for them? So similar to you, a few years ago, we stood up sales development, and sales development is what in some organizations may be perceived as enablement. So it's what we traditionally know as marketing, research, creative, advanced solutions. By doing this, it enabled us to have an umbrella approach and have ad strategists work in partnership with sales. So you didn't have 5 business partners. You were able to speak holistically about marketing solutions. And when you need to deep dive in data insights, we have experts that we would tap to go in. So I believe when it comes to modernizing Salesforce, it's a never-ending journey. It's a constant investment, a constant growth mindset of learning. And it's important that I think as we hire people that they have this desire to be highly curious and want to constantly be a student of this game. So I think modernizing is ever-changing.
Absolutely. And what about you, Al?
Well, so from the technology point of view, we're dealing with a whole bunch of challenges. We're dealing with legacy technology for the most part in our tech platforms. Those platforms are closed. They don't have open APIs, so we can't get information to be freely exchanged between those platforms. And then there's a need from our changing business for new tools for our sellers. So I think you put all that together and you got to try to work around those challenges to find solutions. I think what we've been focused on at Hearst is building out a data mart where we can aggregate information from our broadcast and digital sales. How do we incorporate all our audience data with delivery information from our digital platforms? So if we can aggregate all that information, then how do you use it? So we've been using analytics and building out dashboards for decision support, giving our sellers information on a timely basis in a consumable form that they can utilize very efficiently. And then, I think the 2 challenges we've had from the changing complexity of our business is coming up with new pricing tools. So we've incorporated new capabilities for the complex sales that our sellers are faced with to give them better opportunities to figure out how to price things and then how to optimize the inventory as we move to impression-based selling.
Great. So how are you addressing the swivel chair? How are you combating that? Because I know that is the proverbial swivel chair is the thing that keeps coming up year after year after year. So how do you attack that?
I tell a story that I put together a flow chart of all the platforms we use, all the workflow that's involved, and I thought my boss was going to have a reaction when he saw it. I thought he was going to say, "You're brilliant. You figured this out, and you put together all these tools and processes to make this thing." And he didn't have that reaction. He said, "This is far too complex, far too difficult for us to comprehend. How do we simplify this?" And that's the challenge that we've been trying to address. And we've made limited progress taking small steps to do this, but there hasn't been that big win that we've been looking for, how to simplify all this. And I think everybody's pretty much using the same partners, using the same tools, and it's gotten more complex that we've added new. But I think we fight the fight of talking to our providers, telling them that they need to have open platforms, supporting the TIP standards that are out there for open APIs, and just continue to try to make small incremental steps to get to a broader goal.
Great. And what about you, Jen? How are you leveraging technology to help your sales staff?
So I'd say on the systems piece, it's definitely a challenge, and it's an opportunity for us. It's a work in motion, and we're constantly analyzing what the tools that we have and finding ways to do that. On the sales enablement side, which obviously I'm closer to, it's providing more simple tools that leverage data and analysis on things that have worked before, like how do we position or build campaigns in a quicker fashion that are based on prior success, not just having sellers have to rethink, how do I go to market, how do I go to this client, and what solutions do I provide? But it's really more about assisting them with AI, assisting them with algorithms that help pull that and draw that out of the system. I mean, Nexstar is a huge company with 116 markets and with over 1,500 sellers out there and thousands of clients. There has to be solutions that we know work, and really just absorbing that information in to support a faster path to solution. That's really based on reality and success for a client, not just based on what do we need to sell more to hit a budget line, but what truly is effectively working for performance for a client versus just delivery.
And so how are you disseminating that across the company, those learnings?
So somewhat through technology, through sales systems, through education and learning tools. So taking things like, I think in learning and enablement, we've all sat through, hour-long webinars and recordings of videos that no one ever goes back and rewatches. And, having this sort of impossibility to try to find the right solution quickly. Is taking those learning moments into micro moments that are very contextually related to what's happening during that part of the sales process. So if a seller is in discovery, with a client and doing a CNA, and how do we provide the right tools, how to ask better questions based on this category, using some AI in that, and surface that information to them in the moment where they can really use it then, versus trying to rely on, a meeting that they attended 2 weeks ago and.
Great. So you mentioned AI, and that is the big hot topic and the buzzword right now. So how are your sales teams, if they are using it, how are they using generative AI right now? And I'll start with you, Dawn.
It's funny, I was in a session yesterday and they were talking about how AI is the what and machine learning is the how, right? So AI is such a broad topic, it's not monolithic. So it's really important to understand how to leverage it in the right way and be really smart about it. So we're already leveraging things like AI for ad copy. How do we make that much easier? How do we explore that as we're thinking about advertising and providing content contextually? So this is a topic that is still early days, but it's one of which that I think will only enhance the human experience. And you just have to be very strategic in terms of how you're going to leverage it. But what's really interesting as an organization is we're investing a whole team to really focus on how do we study AI and how we could leverage it to help create greater efficiency and utility for the organization. So we're already seeing the early days of it.
Great. What about you, Al?
Yeah, well, our company's been very proactive about this, but the focus has been more on the content side of things, ensuring we protect our content, provide our journalists with the right guidance on how to use the tools appropriately. I think we're looking at the opportunities related to how AI is going to help our sellers, and exploring how we can automate development of the sales proposal system, looking at lead qualification and how we can incorporate databases we have within our media properties within our enterprise to try to see if we can exploit more opportunities to go cross-media. Looking at tools based upon our data warehouse and seeing if we can identify further sales trends that will help us with the process going forward. So Microsoft is doing a really great job. Their Copilot technology is going to get incorporated into a lot of what we do, and we're exploring the opportunities with that to try to see the path forward.
Great. And are you using it, Jen, in sales?
Right, we are. So we do have, so from the sales process perspective, the ability for an account executive to ask a question related to a business category. So give me an update on, where, this certain business category is, and to have that, available to them to be able to speak more confidently to an advertiser. There's, from the CNA process all the way through, what I hope to get at, which is give me a report on how this category is doing. Give me a report on, leveraging our CRM technology, where my best sales opportunity is, or where my prospect, what should I be prospecting? So really asking the system to help assist and draw that content out to give them a faster path forward to their approach to the business.
I was just going to ask, have you seen that that's created efficiency in the sales process for your sellers?
I think it's helped, advance the speed, right, by which they can get in front of a client. They could be more prescriptive in front of a client. They could be talking to the right clients. And, even on the creative side, our people, we've expected them to do so many things. So this does assist them in creative, in, just valid business reason, generation, that sort of thing.
Great. So let's talk about structure a little bit, because a new and changing ecosystem means that sometimes you have to change the way you're structured. So Dawn, can you talk a little bit about what you all are doing at Effective?
Absolutely. I think for a long time, we just thought, okay, let's just geographically break down the teams and go after business that way. And what we've realized is we just have to be much more savvy by customer segment and start to look at that small business may need a specific approach that may be very consultative in guiding that journey, while you'll have large agencies that really have a much more sophisticated play in terms of leveraging data and technology. And so what we found was we needed to really segment and make sure that sellers were able to have that appropriate consultative approach and know which solutions to bring out at the right time. And so we're seeing more and more the ability to speak to clients in the language and meet them where they are on the journey. And then also knowing how to leverage data insights with a really strong CRM tool. So then we as business partners in sales development, we're all looking at that same one source of truth. I think that's really important. Gone are the days where you tap someone next to you and say, hey, I need help with a deck, or I need some data research. Now having that data accessible to everybody enables you to move much faster, be more appropriate in terms of solutions you bring to the table, and that all happens with the right org structure and that same mindset. So it's all about making sure that we're providing and leveraging insights to create the best solutions for our clients.
Wonderful. What about you, Jen?
I agree. I couldn't agree more. The single view of the customer is critical, especially when you in a company like Nexstar, where we've got all these bolt-on companies. We have a couple of networks. We've got all of our local owned and operated stations. Having more knowledge and sort of insight, or as a subject matter expert on your client and their business, is how we're shifting. So you think about like our networks division and our national sales groups are really looking at holding companies and having sales groups aligned by client in that way, where they become that expert of the client versus having product experts or teams that are just segmented to either digital or linear or networks, looking at that portfolio sale as the result, but that client relationship and that alignment, understanding deeply what their needs are, is a much better way to approach those relationships. And I think moving towards selling audiences across a portfolio and network rather than program and placement, right?
Great. And what about you, Al?
Yeah, the sales process for media sellers in local media has become really highly complex. And there's such a broad portfolio of products now. It's how do we provide better tools and information for our sellers to make their job easier? The whole subject of how you transact that through a common platform is an industry opportunity that we're all exploring. And then how do we educate our customers about the value proposition of what the products are and how they can effectively get their message to a different audience across multiple platforms is the opportunity that sits there in front of us now. And we're trying to provide our sellers with better information in a more timely manner, in a more efficient mechanism, so that they have the ability to go out to the customers and sell that value proposition.
And so how are you all doing that in just the plainest terms for training and coaching? How are you going to market with training your sellers and your sales leadership? How do you approach that, Jen?
So it's, training to me is, I think sometimes people look at training as punitive, right? Well, I didn't do this, so I need training. Or I don't understand this product, so let's get product training. It's really more about a process. Training is an ever-evolving, always-on thing. So instead of, before where we would have done a webinar or we would have sent some of our team into a market or into a business group to train and sit down at a table with a bunch of salespeople, it's really about pulling that back and providing them do-it-yourself tools where they can self-discover what their need is at the moment and contextually inside of the moment that they're in the sales process. And it's taking those into micro moments versus these broad, webinars where you can't have interaction, you can't really dive in. But beyond that, it's the accountability. And I think Rashad said it's, everyone has to be a voracious consumer of our content and a voracious consumer to learn. And if they don't take that initiative themselves, to really step up and try to be more relevant in a new economy and a new transformative environment that we're in, they're going to be behind. So some of that ownership is on them, but that accountability has to, follow top to bottom.
So it sounds like it's more of a self-serve model.
It's somewhat self-serve, but we do have a team that provides workshops and still does different layers of training. We do workshops, e-learning, do-it-yourself, knowledge base, that sort of thing. And it's again, it's being accessible with that content in a discoverable way to solve the problem wherever they have it.
Got it.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna add
Dawn.
on. I think you're right. Learning is an everyday journey. It's not like a point in time. And particularly as how fast our industry is moving, there's often times that I pause and wait, how are we getting that data served? How are we leveraging this? Because it's moving so fast. And I think when we look at our organizations, you'll have sometimes a third who are embracing, who are super forward and ready to learn. Then there's a third that are still learning and starting to really grasp it. And then those that spend years and years of selling spot cable very successfully that may not feel the need to, or a little bit of intimidation associated with it. So you always want to do not punitive, but assessments to see where you are in the journey and ensure you're not doing a one-size-fits-all, because not everyone is in the same place. And I think with sales development, being partners in the field, to have a certain level of expertise to help guide people in real time with different situations to help them understand how to field these questions. Particularly in the streaming space, it's so complicated. Acquired inventory, owned and operated inventory, the data that's leveraged. A lot of folks are really struggling, not just on our side, but also on the other side. So the simpler we can make it, the easier it is for us to focus on what really the priority is, which is to achieve the client's goals. So I also think modalities are important. It's not just the e-learning book, but gamification, real life scenarios, role playing. Role playing is still, I think, one of the best ways to learn, because those are real life scenarios. And identifying within your organization who are really strong champions to help bring others along. So maybe creating little clusters of teams to create smaller environments so people can learn in a safe space. So I think all of that is the learning journey we are all on together, because the reality is it's moving so fast.
Well, and what you said about different people being in different places and where they are in their learning journey. For the first time in history, we've got 4 generations in the workforce. So talk about, does that play into your training at all, your coaching at all?
Absolutely.
Or how you look at things?
I look at the generational differences more as an individual as well, because it's very hard to make that generalization. I feel like one of the things that we do well is we always have these quarterly check-ins, and within it there's a career growth plan. And through that, I think if you coach your leaders appropriately, they're having that dialogue. What motivates you? What are your aspirations? What stretch parts can we expose you to? And that type of dialogue enables you to nuance your coaching style based on the individual's needs. And you're right, the generational element almost gets uncovered in that dialogue. And so the more connection we have, the better you're able to modify your coaching and development depending on that generation and individual.
Great. And what about you, Al? Anything on that front for you?
No, yeah, I think it's consistent with what these guys are saying. We're always coaching our leaders and, trying to educate them about how to best approach this, but we are dealing with that problem where you have the old school, old line sellers that are there along with the new generation coming in. We are spending a lot of time cultivating a new generation of sellers to come in, and one of the things that we're doing is making sure they're literate about technology. And one of the challenges I've undertaken is to provide this information to them, again, in an intuitive manner where they can take that information and use it to help them in their jobs. And some of the old school people have a harder time with that. The new school of people are very comfortable with it. So I think that's the opportunity for our sales leaders to coach these people about how to use that technology. I think the other side of it is one of the common things that sellers are all motivated by is incentives, and Rashid talked about it. You can get someone educated pretty quickly if you put a carrot out there and say you're going to get incentive if you adopt this type of mindset about how you sell, and these are the products that we want you to push and sell, and then they're going to educate themselves really quickly. So we create incentive programs that are oriented towards how we want them to embrace the overall product portfolio, and I think that's becoming a very effective tool for our sellers.
Great, great. Well, we've got a few minutes left, and you have a question, Peter? Sure, we're gonna open it up for questions.
Sure, and this is actually piggyback on what Al just said, and this is a kind of two-parter. So first, with quick answer, future solutions, do you think they lean more towards digital or linear?
Well, I always approach this as you can't ignore the linear business. So the digital business is a necessary component of this. We have to be on old world platforms. We have to focus on OTT and streaming, but we can't neglect the bread and butter of our business was still the lion's share of our revenue. But the future has to be about selling on impressions across the converged product set. The technology we have to develop has to be able to accommodate this in an efficient manner. So I think you have to look to the future and have to say it's going to be cross-platform, and that's the way we have to orient all the technology platforms that we're architecting.
So this is for everyone. The reason I'm asking is, and I think I agree, we need a massive transformational shift in our sales force, absolutely. But I'm trying to be objective here. I'm not trying to put anyone, but sometimes we don't move fast enough. And so the reason I want to ask this is because to change behavior, we need to like sell it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be confident on whether they incentivize more to sell linear or digital. So they push more on digital or linear.
For us, it's multi-screen. It's not or, it's and, right? And we've done a ton of research where we've seen advertisers get 55% more incremental reach when they're doing linear and streaming. So it's a non-negotiable. It's if you want to reach your consumer based on consumer behavior, they're across all screens. So that's how we sell. Gone are the days where you have your linear salesperson, your digital salesperson, or you're bringing in your digital expert as a supplement. Sellers today have to be well-versed in all, and that's how we need to incent, is based on selling the full suite of solutions based on the client's objectives.
Yeah, I think the challenge is taking the ownership of direction away from finance, who needs to categorize all of those businesses in different buckets, which leads to compensation plans that are aligned to those buckets, which leads to selling strategies aligned to those buckets. So if the future opportunity is truly about audience selling and is truly about, fluidity and finding the audience where they are at the moment and leveraging all of our systems to do that, our compensation has to be aligned to the total goal, right? And everyone gets paid the same way. So that eliminates all the silos and the lines between those. And it really truly makes it more about the client at that point.
And the technology response to the question you asked is that it takes a long time to build platforms. It takes a long time to make change to these legacy platforms. I think the technologist's perspective on it is we have to be thinking, where are we going to go next, and orient the work that we're doing to build the platforms that our sellers can't even envision yet, knowing that this is going to open that gateway to help them be more efficient in the future.
It's a good question.
Yes.
Very good. All right.
Hey, I had one more question. Can I ask
Sure.
a question? So this is a great conversation about modernizing the sales force internally. We know that the buy side is also going through its massive transformation. How are you bridging the gap between changing your sales force to make sure it matches what the needs on the other side is?
I mean, for us, we're having conversations. We're bringing clients into our conversations to say, how do you want to buy from us? And we're trying to give them a view into what we believe the future is regarding this sort of disappearance of platform and impressions-based, audience-based sales. And, are they aligning their systems to also agree to move forward in that path? So it really has to come down to, we all together have to agree to move at the same pace and work in that fashion. Otherwise, that's where you end up, is we sell in a way they didn't want to buy, right?
I think this is a hot topic because the reality of when I was a seller, it was very clear who my buyer was or who my planning is. Today, you really need to think about hunting through the media planning, the strategist, the buyer, the TV, the video streaming, because it's not so overt anymore, and every organization is set up differently. And so as I think about the profile of the future seller, that hunger and that need to really investigate and figure out and network, those are the things that you need right now, because we are in that state of change, and every organization is set up differently. Some it's the media planning, some it's the buyer, the traditional TV buyer. So I don't think it's such a straightforward answer anymore, and that's the job of the seller.
The right answer is to get to the client. I mean, at the end
Of
of
course,
the day.
I mean, the client is key.
And there is, again, a technology aspect of this where, we're, a group of us are advocating for open platforms and common APIs, and we've brought the buy side and the sell side together to have that conversation. It's a slow and difficult process, but nevertheless, we've tried to get everybody at the table to have the conversation.
All right. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the panelists here. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie. I have a couple announcements. I'm Brenda Hetrick. I'm sure everyone knows that I'm Mark's boss. Just kidding. We're going to we have a break coming up immediately, but I'd like to try to keep that to 5 minutes to get us back on time. For those of you who need the Wi-Fi, it's Ocean One. If you haven't got that yet, that's what the Wi-Fi is. And last, thanks, Melanie. Thanks, panel. I wanted to recognize a true friend of Matrix, and me personally. I think everyone knows Al Lustgarten. I don't know, he maybe is retiring or maybe not what he has always been at Hearst, but he has been a partner, he has been a client, and he has been a friend of our organization as well as the industry, and helping us move forward with technology, processes, always willing to, if you call and say, hey, what about this, help us out in any way that he can. And so on behalf of the Matrix team, I wanted to recognize Al for his contribution. One other person I want to quickly recognize is Joe Lampert, who has also been at every darn event we've had, huh, Joe? The cold ones, the West Coast ones, and as has Al, but I know Al is transitioning into some different things, so I wanted to recognize him. If we can do our break in 5 minutes and try to get back on time, I'd appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.